Okay, just want to say from the outset, I'm getting ready to fool with the doors now, and I just want to say that, you know, if you don't care about having electric windows and all that good stuff, and using the latches from the modern Challenger, you can save yourself all of this work that I'm about to engage in. Use the old stuff. No reason to go through all of this, but this is something I discussed with the customer, and we're going to go ahead and do this to modernize the inside of the door and the operation. I am not, however, going to use the door handles from the modern Challenger. We're going to try to adapt. You know, this is just a mock-up piece. As you can see, it's all pitted, but I'm going to use this to back engineer a setup that will work to open the door with this setup, because this is quite involved here. There's lights, bells, and whistles, and all kinds of stuff going on in this thing. I don't need to fool with that. Anyway, also you'd have to put this, unlike some of the older handles, this handle has a integral part of it is the door skin itself. In other words, it has a pocket that's punched into the door skin. So the handle is just this piece here that feeds in. This is a backer plate over here. It's a two-piece setup, and it has a little, as you can see, this little, you have to go in from the edge of the door. There's a little plug, you have to pull it out, and then there's this little Torx screw, and when you unwind it, it draws back this whole metal mechanism here, and it releases these two tabs and allows you to pull just the handle portion out of the car. So all of that would have to be placed, and I don't know. For the look of this car, we're not going to do that. I mean, if you were going for a more resto mod look, that's probably what you'd want to fool with. It's not impossible, but it's just another stage of development I don't feel like I want to fool with, especially since this is otherwise going to look like it's a stock Charger. Anyway, the first thing I'm getting ready to do is, now that I've got the hinges on, I have a reference from the holes to the center of the hole here. I don't want to line up. This is where the little wiring harness, rubber accordion goes. So I've transferred the shape of where the rubber accordion pops into the other door, to this Challenger door. Took that pattern, just cut it out of tape, and now I'm getting ready to mark it out and cut that out. I want to cut that out before I even get started here, so that it's not something I have to struggle with the door on the car. Anyway, that's where we're going to begin. Anyway, so the method I would use to cut a hole that has radius corners like this is you want to start out by drilling out the corners. So the first thing I do is I find where the center of the radius is for this arc, which turns out to be 3/8 of an inch for a 3/4 inch hole, and then I mark it out on my pattern, and I'll drill it out with an 1/8 inch pilot hole bit, and then I'll use a step drill bit to widen out the hole, so that the first thing I end up with is the corners, and now all I have to do is connect the dots with a straight, so it doesn't have me in there trying to round these corners up. The holes are nice and neat. Anyway, I just thought I'd show you that. With the hole cut, I dropped the harness through and made sure that this rubber grommet was going to fit nice in that hole that I just cut, because you know, you can get to a point where, you know, there's no way to clear it out any bigger. So before I go any further, while it's still in the rough and I can still grind on it, just test fit it and move on from here. Alright, I'm getting ready to throw the door up onto the bench, and we'll start working on the interior panel of the door. I saved these from my Daytona project. All they are is a couple of simple profiles taken off the door, spaced out with a little spacer piece of wood there. And what this does is it cradles the door and keeps it from scooting all over the place while you're trying to work on it. It doesn't take a lot of time to make them. This is just some carpet glued on there. That's there in case Well, not in case, but because near the end of the job, the door's being painted and everything, and you start to assemble everything, you need some place nice to set it down to work neatly inside the door without worrying about scratching the faces. Okay, there it is in the cradle. Incidentally, a lot of people will just use, there's a standard kind of a sawbuck type horse type situation that they have in body shops. They're basically a fold-out stand with some foam, like pool noodle type foam on either one of the rails, and it works just the same. So if you got those, yeah. But if you don't, this is an easy way to do it up on a bench. All right, well, this might seem a little drastic, since we're going to be creating an entirely different architecture for lifting the window with a different kind of a regulator. That'll be, I'll be able to mount the power motor to, and I have to change all the configuration as far as the jamb, as far as where the lock mechanism comes in, and how the door handle interfaces with that. What I did was I just removed the center of this door, and I left anything that was doubled up, any structural pieces like over here and over here, up there and down here, and any mounting points I would have to have for the vent windows over here, and all of that's intact, so that I'll be able to put that in its stock location. Other than that, everything is out of my way now, so that I can see clearly what I'm doing inside here, as far as my latch mechanism and any kind of rods I might have to fabricate in order to make that actuate. So anyway, that's that. Alright, before I even get started on the fabrication, I decided to clean out the door completely. It was still full of a lot of blasting sand and things like that inside the nooks and crannies and everywhere. It seems like that stuff never goes away. It'll blow out on you at the last minute, so this is a good opportunity to get it all out of there, vacuum it out. I'll wipe it all down with some lacquer thinner, and then I just went ahead and, since it was all clean, put the sound deadener in there, and that'll help keep that outer skin from vibrating, because there's going to be a speaker right up in this area over here, and that'll keep that whole outer skin, like I said, from rattling. Alright, with the old latch in place, just put some tape up here, and I just threw a bolt in here to simulate the latch stud, and roughly got the center of the latch stud location here. And what that'll help me do is that'll help me establish the center of where my new latch has to go, right along here. So next thing I'll do is I'll take this out and I'll make a pattern, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Alright, using this as a guideline, this little upstand here, this little upstand in the stamping, I basically use that center line to tell me where the new latch mechanism has to line up in order for that to kind of latch in the same spot. It's not 100% critical. You just want it to be in the neighborhood anyway. I do, in order for it to latch where Dodge felt like it needed the most tension. So with that center mark, I came over here and lined it up on the edge of the Challenger door, and I traced out both the hole pattern and the latch pattern. There's an additional flange that's going to have to be cut in. You'll see what that's all about soon here. But anyway, this gives me a locator as to where to put my new plate, which I'm going to have to cut out the edge of this door and create a plate that has this pattern in it. So I'll be able to put my new latch mechanism in this area right over here. So this doesn't have to be the entire plate. My intentions are just to cut a smaller plate, just enough to eliminate the existing drill holes and everything in here. So this is a nice clean looking plate here. I don't know, I might go this far, but it's not necessary. But this is necessary to make sure that that plate eventually ends up in that location. All right, well, before going wild and installing it in the door, I had to make sure everything lined up and everything fit with the keeper here. So I had to countersink these holes here, and looks like I need to take just a see how you can see just a little bit of the keeper here, and you can't see it here, and it's a little bit narrow over here. I'll just have to just kind of clean that out a little bit more, just so that this plate never interferes with the action of the keeper. So that's next. Alright, so that's what it looks like welded in, and got the mechanism on the back side here, and obviously all these have to be modified in order to work. This is for the key. There's only one key mechanism on the driver's side with this, and this is for opening the door. I have to figure out where that's going to land, because there's going to be a speaker right here, so we got to figure out where we want to put that handle. And yeah, so anyway, we'll be moving on to the next thing. Well, my objective here is when I hang this door, I'm able to start working on the latch post right there and get that all straightened out so that the door latches, and I can get that into position where it needs to go, so I can see what kind of interferences I have with the door closed. I did want to mention that when you do this like this, you can see these series of holes. This is where the weather stripping goes. Well, it gets a little cut right here. It's an interruption right here before it picks up again and goes the rest of the way. It's not a problem. I did it on my car. Seals up fine. Anyways, on to the next thing. Alright, as they say, the best laid plans of mice and men. There's always something that has to be done before you get to what you want to do. Anyway, I've been working on both of these doors simultaneously, so every time I show you a stage of development, I do it twice. That way I don't get to the end here and have to stop and start all over from the very beginning. What I found when I hung these two doors, besides the fact that there was zero door gap, on this side here, I decided to take it off the door side. And I'll do the same on the other side. The decision came with looking at that other door. It's pretty chewed up along that edge of the door. I mean, there was some metal repair done there, and then, so I didn't feel bad about cutting the door as opposed to cutting a brand new quarter panel. So that's what I did. This is just a rough cut to get it to fall in the hole where it needs to fall. But what I suspected would happen, I didn't run into this problem with my charger, in that the dash was 4 inches farther forward, so there was nothing to interrupt the door as far as this sticking out. You can see I had to rework this metal piece. I had to make some cuts in the side of the dash, and then I had to draw this whole side. This plastic side is flexible, so I had to cut the top here a little bit and move it in. So I'll have to take this off and refinish it again. But this is drawing it away from the door. In addition to that, I made a relief cut here, which, like I said, I'm working on these simultaneously. On this side over here, while I didn't have any interference on this side, the dash is a little bit asymmetrical. It's a little bit fatter on that side than it is over here. This is what I'm going to do on that side also, and that's just to backfill this area back in here. This is naturally, normally this is usually painted out the car color on a regular 68 Charger, 69 Charger. Some of the upscale models, they have it covered with a little bit of a padding here, but anyway, this had to be recessed just to make sure that I could close my doors. And like I said, I was heading towards doing the latch work, but as you can see, I've got no room here to spare. And as you can see from the glints of the light, this is pretty chewy here. Some metal repair was done down in this area here. It's quite lumpy, so I don't feel bad about taking a chop out of here, especially since this backside was kind of scabbed in over here. I don't know if you can see this. This is not even reaching the this rim here. In other words, the skin folds over the rim here, and there's just some tack welds just kind of bridging the gap here. So I'm going to take off all of this, grind this down really clean, and put a new rim on this end over here. And like I said, I was heading towards working on the posts, but then I realized I forgot I had to deal with these door seams. And you can also see the way it fits relative to the quarter. Got to sweeten that up a little bit. Anyway, that's where we're at with that. Okay, so after I basically ground this to an even 1/4 of an inch on this back edge of the door, naturally what happened was I ground off the piece of the front skin that wraps around to the back and captures the back side and attaches it to the inner door. So what I'm in the process of doing right now is I've gone ahead and I've sprayed some weld-through primer here because this is going to be covered, and I'm adding back the rim. I've just got this one tacked on right now, but I'll go back and spot it all and make it solid. Once this is on all the way around here, then I'll proceed to hem this over and clean it all up the way I like it. But anyway, I just thought I'd show you that's how I'm going to recover from having trimmed off this to where this works with this quarter panel. Alright, so here's that hem edge that I added back to the front skin here. It's been welded on solid, one tack at a time all the way down, then ground off, cleaned up. I've got it primed on the back side, and when that's dry I'll hammer it over and I'll show you what I ended up with. Alright, so that's what it looks like now that it's hemmed over on the back side over here. I like to try to hit it with a hammer, persuade it over the corner, and then once I get close, in order to send it home, making sure to keep the pressure on this side here, because you'll put a dent in the front side if you're not careful, and just kind of squeeze it down to its last little bit to close it up on the back side. Because this is a welded edge over here, this is it's a little bit rough in places, so I'm going to go back down here and hit it again with tacks, so that I'm sure that it won't crack and open up again, since I've bent it over. It's pretty rigid when you weld it, so and then you grind it off. So there's a couple of places here where I missed and it opened up a little bit. So just to be sure, we go over this one more time and then clean it back off and make sure it's nice and clean. Anyway, this is what it looks like when it's closed up. So it's a good way to try and tune those openings up. Alright, let me show you what I'm trying to attempt to do here with the latch mechanism to convert it from the newer style handle that operates by using a cable. It's tied in here. There's a lever arm here, so that when you lift up on the handle, you can see this lever moves up, and then over here, as you can see, it's also fixed here, and then this point here, if you'll watch it, it pulls down like that. Alright, so what we want to do is we want to reverse that action. So what we have to do is we have to take this piece here, there's a little shield here, take this off and then reverse this piece so that it's going in an up direction, because what we have here is the old style doorknob. You push the handle, it pushes down, so as opposed to pulling up like the other one, we have to push that mechanism in a downward direction. And what I've done here is I've taken this heim joint, I've drilled out the little ball stud that goes in normally in the end of this piece. I've put a 1/4-20 nut and a bolt to fix, so I create a stud, and I can slide this heim joint onto that stud and lock it. And this gives me a little bit of adjustment here on this little threaded rod. So if the distance is not 100% right when I weld it up to this little piece of rod that I've adapted and just welded to the threaded rod, if there's any distance issues, I can just loosen this, pop this out, wind it in a couple of times, tighten the lock nut, and then hopefully this will mess will actuate that same mechanism right there. Anyway, that's what I'm going to try to do. We'll see how it works. Okay, so this is what it looks like in place. You can see the rod coming down from here, and that's basically got to actuate that point right there and push down on it. I haven't got it clipped here yet, but no need to. I'm just trying this stuff out here. Anyway, I'll demonstrate the latch in a minute here. Let me get positioned. All right, let me see if I can show you how the mechanism's working. Bottom line is this is the latch piece that goes in here. That latches the door, and just pushing the button like you would normally pops it out, and that's it. Just wanted to show you this linkage for the driver's side. It's a little bit different than because of the way the mechanism is in there, and I wanted to be able to clear other linkage that has to go through here to the key. There's a key barrel in this door, but there won't be in the right-hand door. If I do put in one, it'll just be decoration, because there's no key mechanism for the right-hand door. Anyway, the linkage has to go past this other linkage, so this has to jog out a little bit. Also, they use on the old handles, they use the same mechanism, spring mechanism, for the left and for the right, so it has a tab that comes out. So on one side it's in this direction, and the other side it's in this direction. So just a little bit of a difference in the linkage from left to right. All right, more fiddly bits, as they say. You can see the reason that this arm had to be kicked out and over now. This goes up and under. The main thing with this barrel that I had to do was, this is just a replacement barrel for a 68 Charger, 69, 70, whatever, B body. This little throw arm here had to be lengthened because there just wasn't enough rotation to activate the little mechanism. Let me show you what the mechanism looks like. Okay, that's all the throw it has, but you can see how far the arm is having to move in order to just activate that. Anyway, that's normally activated by the solenoid or the key fob or something like that. So this item here is usually in a neutral position, and it doesn't come into play. This is operating, independently with the solenoid. It doesn't even move the arm. So anyway, this is just a secondary emergency to get into the car, obviously. But anyway, this is the little route I had to take in order to get that to all happen. All right, the next area I'm going to attack here is going to be the door jamb, where the latch goes. The first thing I did was these little plates are held in with a couple of tabs on the back side. So since I'm not going to be using the stock latch from the 68, you don't want these just rattling around in there. So I went ahead and bent the tabs back and pulled those out. That's the first thing. Next thing, I went up and these is 065 steel, and what I'm doing is I'm making a plate that will flush this jamb up, so I have some place to bolt the new latch striker on. So that's the next move. With the filler plates just tacked into place, I put a little piece of sheet metal on the outside of the door to keep it flush, and I'll get inside the car and through the opening where the latch was. I pulled the latch out. I'll mark with a little bit of I'll dust it with a little bit of spray paint, so it'll mark exactly where the latch falls on that strike plate. Alright, so that spray paint shadow is going to go a long way to helping me determine exactly the location of my catch on the door jamb here. I've got a few little things I have to measure up first, as far as the depth of how far the latch goes in when it's fully engaged, and then I'll remove these and put the backing plate on that the latches will bolt to. All right, before I got involved with drilling out my latch, I decided to double check something and see if I had any problems installing. This is the piece that goes in the back that controls the rail and in the back of the window here. This is the back of the glass. It's carried up by a chrome strip that attaches to the glass, and it guides the window up and keeps it oriented correctly. And bottom line is I had some issues with how it is going to mount. There's some interference issues with this latch. I really don't have a place to go with the latch. Move it up, down, in or out. There's no place to go with the latch. The latch is where it's at. So I'm having to make some modifications to see if this will work or if I'm going to have to do some fancy footwork to eliminate this this guide rail. Right now I'm just modifying this piece over here, and we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, move on from here. So I have to modify this piece now. So I put it back together, had it all marked where it was. There was a mark that showed where this nut was, the previous adjustment. So that's in the neighborhood of where it's got to be. At least it's within the range. Bottom line is it leans in the car here. The latch is right in this section here, and all of this material here is in the way, at least from what I could see at this point. Anyway, I've got to take, this does two things. It slides in and out, which rocks this track this way or this way, and aligns it, you know, up against the roof, basically. It also has an attachment point here that has a slot that you can move this way or this way to tilt the window. So I got to make it do two things. So I've basically got to cut everything away here and get rid of that. But then I have to reattach this to this on the forward section. So what I'm going to do is first, I've got, you know, captured nut on the back of this flange, and I'm going to weld that on here just like this. Okay. Then I'm going to come across with another flange from here that has a slot in it, and it'll bolt down to this. Once all that's secured, then I'll cut away everything I don't need on the back side, and I'll establish a sliding adjustable flange that'll mount off this forward edge instead of this back. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. All right, I thought I'd just show you this before I cut the rest of it away. You can see there's the old mount coming around from the front side here, or the back side, whatever you want to call it. And then I've got this tab welded to this piece here, and then I've got a slot with a tab mounted to this. Now I'll cut this away. The only thing that'll be left is this. I'll get rid of the rest of this stuff here, and I'll have a mounting point at the same spot that I can both slide in both directions, so that I'll still have my adjustment for this runner. By the way, these are all going to get, this is all going to get replaced. All this rubber in here is all deteriorated. Well, it looks like it might work, but just barely. You remember I cleared this out over here because this little box on the latch interfered with the steel, so there's just a layer of this rubber with the felt liner in it on the inside. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick, but there's no interference with that piece. I can run this piece up and down, and it runs very freely up and down through there. So anyway, I just needed to get that hard corner out of the way so that I could rock this thing in a little bit further. You can see I've got my tab and my mounting thing here, so I can adjust this in or out. Right now this is a little flimsy. I have to make this a little bit more rigid, but bottom line is I'm at the limit of what I can draw it in over here, which seems to be just fine. I had to take this little piece here, which is on the other, usually mounted on the other side. It's just a snap clip that clips the rod that goes up and does the button for the lock over here. It's nothing critical, but it was right up against it, so I flipped it around, put it on the other side. Now it's got plenty of room. There was going to be an issue here with the solenoid, but since I've got all of this garbage out of the back, the solenoid now is clear, which is good because that's integral to the whole situation here. Like I said, I've got to take this and I've got to make this a little more rigid so that it's a little wiggly right now because I cut the whole panel out. At any rate, the main thing is when you close the door right here and you put this rail that holds the rear side of the glass into this slide here. When it slides up into the roof approximately there, which is where the rubber will hit it, and it's just about missing, let me see if I can focus here, the front edge of this metal here. I might just clearance that metal. I had to do it on my car so that I have just a little bit more room to move it outwards but can't go too far because we have the window sweeps here, the window whiskers, and the glass. They all have to line up. Can't be too much friction there, but I just don't want this metal scraping the front edge of this piece here, and I want this to be able to power up really nicely without any interference there. So right now we're good. We'll see what the other side looks like and see if this system is going to work. Like I said, it's got to be symmetrical. It's got to work on the other side too. Anyway, that's my little detour that I took. Now back to the latches after I see if the other side works. All right, back to the latch plates. So after I basically traced out the latch plate here, after doing some measurements, make sure it was set pretty much where it needed to be based on the center line and everything else, and set back far enough. I drilled some pilot holes here, first with an 1/8 and then to a 1/4, and then I took the step drill and widened them out. And the reason I widened them out much larger than what the bolt actually needs is there's these little plates that I recovered out of the door jamb of the Challenger, and what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to capture them so that they float on the back side of this plate, and that way there'll be some adjustment back, forth, tilt, up, down in these holes, so I can get the latch placement just where I need it to be once it's finally on the car. Also, what I have to do is I'm going to have to remove just a sec. You can see where the drill holes are here, just touching. I'm going to have to cut this out so that I have clearance for the bolts because they're kind of long for these latch plates. Kind of a standard they use for the door hinges and stuff. Anyway, I'll show you all that when it's done. Okay, very quickly, on the back side I've got a capture tab here. You can see it's just a U-shaped tab. It allows this thing to move around, but it also keeps it from falling out, and that gives me some adjustment as far as back and forth and up and down, and also to rock it back and forth. So I'm just going to tack it in and see how it works. If it needs more clearance or anything like that, we'll go on from here. Okay, since this quarter panel was installed on this car by others about 1/8 to 3/16 too far forward, hence why I had to trim off the door because I'm out of adjustment on the hinges. So anyway, that's the only explanation for the short door opening. Unlike my car, I've had to take this plate and trim it out a little bit more and recess it because the nuts, the bolts on this catch right here on the door jamb were scraping, so I needed to clearance that a little bit, so I recessed it about 1/8 of an inch, and that's the clearance I needed. Also had to trim the back side of this latch as I did on my car to get it all the way in. You see my initial setting here with a red mark to get it in far enough to pull the door shut where it needs to go, and that's what we have right there, and operates with that old style door. handle, which is what I was after. Anyway, on to the next side, and that'll be it for this week. Sorry for the little detour, but these things happen.